having that real focus on what my values are meant that I could assess the role against my values, which was really important. And then, yes, when I met my team one of the first times, really clearly articulating it. I remember, because when I got the role, this is the 2022 role, when I went in and I had my one-to-ones with everybody, my very first one-to-ones with people, I did share that. Then, this is me, this is what I'm about, these are the things that are really important to me. And it allowed people to then connect to me, I think, very quickly. And then what we'd then progressed to do was more of a sort of broader teams exercise in terms of their own values. And then as a team, we could see really where we had very similar values and where we had that diversity in values as well.
Hi, I'm Sehaam Cyrene. Welcome to the Leaders Who Coach podcast. I teach leaders how to use coaching skills with their teams, their peers, clients, and yes, even their bosses, so you can be more confident and influential. You can learn more about all of that at coachlead.co and more about coach leadership techniques here on the podcast. Do subscribe and check out the links with this episode. I'm so pleased you are here for the conversation we're going to have with my guest today, Laura Shrieves. Laura has been the VP of Engineering for Ultra Maritime since April 2024. In this capacity, she leads engineering operations in the UK, bringing over 20 years of experience in systems and software engineering across the defence and transport sectors. Beyond her corporate capabilities and responsibilities, Laura is a dedicated advocate for diversity and inclusion in engineering. And she serves as a trustee on the board of the Women's Engineering Society and has been recognised as a fellow of both the Institute of Engineering and Technology and the Women's Engineering Society. Outside of work, she enjoys travelling and creating new experiences with her husband and 2 young children, and particularly being present when she's not working so she can enjoy them. Welcome, Laura.
Oh, thank you very much, Liam. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I'm really chuffed that you're here. It's a delight. Now, you graduated from Leaders Who Coach in August 2022. So why don't we why don't we start there and you tell us about your career before then, during the cohort that you were in, and then after, hear what's still hanging for you.
Okay, yeah, brilliant. So let's dive into that. I would say, just winding back, 2021 is when I had my second child. So I was on maternity leave for the vast majority, 21. Came back in December 21. And I changed a lot as a person. It was COVID. I'd taken on a leadership role just before I went on maternity leave as head of engineering. So my first sort of big role, over 100 people. And I came back and I just felt a bit flat. I had changed, the business hadn't changed massively. I was having a conversation with my line manager and I wanted more, and I wanted to be able to expand my own experiences and capabilities, and I needed something to help me do that. And a chance LinkedIn post, I found your course, applied and started your course, I think, in the May 2022. So my daughter was just under a year old at that time. In going through that course, I got a lot of new skills. I got an amazing network of other women technology leaders who I still have some interactions with. And it really helped clarify what I wanted next as well. So it wasn't just about the sort of things that I could do to develop others, but there was a lot of self-reflection and really understanding, as a leader in technology and a mother of 2 children, what do I want as my next step. So it came as a real great opportunity in terms of the timing, but also the content and the network and for me. And then over the course of the actual course, I had applied for and got my first engineering director role as well. So it was a real transformational sort of 18 months for me, I would say.
That's amazing. Isn't it interesting that coming back from maternity leave, there's an energy clearly for you, and a way that maybe you wanted to apply yourself. Could you talk a little bit more about that? Because I don't think that's something we acknowledge so much as mums, perhaps.
Yeah, I think it's been really interesting for me, both maternity leaves. I've come back and people have assumed that, I'm transitioning back into work. It's going to be really difficult, or I want to take it easy. But actually, there were so many skills I gained in maternity leave that I could then apply. As a mother in maternity leave, I could do anything in 5 minutes, because that's all the time we have, isn't it? It just made me very, very efficient. It made me realize that quite a lot of the work that I was doing prior to that was potentially, I was very busy, but was I really adding value? When you have no time, it helps you cut through all of the non-value adding work, doesn't it? So
Yeah.
I'd already built on that in my first maternity leave. I came back, wanting more, raring to go from the second maternity leave. And it was that ability to go, right, okay, well, what can I do? What more can I do? I've got these skills that I've learned outside of the workplace. How can I bring those in? And I think the clarity that you get when you've only got 5 minutes to do something is absolutely something that everybody who's been on any sort of, maternity, paternity leave can relate to.
Yeah, it's the focus, isn't it? What's going to give me the most value in the time that I have? What's going to make my next half hour easier, or whatever needs to happen, because you are having to anticipate the day and how it might unfold, right? It's like the packing of if you're out for the day, what do you need, and anticipating all of that, but also not wanting to carry everything. And that's really fascinating. So can you pinpoint when you came back? Obviously, that ability to do more, that focus and that clarity was really important to you. Were there any other elements in terms of what your role was or what you were responsible for that felt like I can do more here?
I don't think there was one, there wasn't a particular element of my role, but I just had that sort of intrinsic feeling I can do. I didn't know what that more was. And fortunately, I had a really supportive line manager at the time that I felt really comfortable. I didn't have to go in there and go, I want X, Y, and Z. I could just be really open, honest, and quite vulnerable with him to say, look, I feel like I can do more. This, can you help me? And he was extremely supportive and just said, okay, well, we could look at this. You could look at something outside of engineering. You could look at a bigger role. We could look, he gave me lots of options, but also, when I found the Leaders Who Coach course, there was never any question of, oh no, well, you can't have the time to commit to doing this. And, he could see the bigger picture, which is, when you're looking to grow within a role, your line manager is that sort of key conduit. If they are not fully supportive of you, you don't feel like you can then do it yourself. So for me, just having that line manager who was completely supportive of my development, could see the future potential in me as well, meant that I then believed it as well. So I think for me that was the key for me in those conversations, and the reason that I found your course in the first place was he was just so supportive.
That's brilliant. I also want to give you credit for advocating for yourself. It's fantastic to have a line manager who cares and will be supportive in that way and advocate for you. But also, it sounds like you are able to do that. You're able to kind of put it on the table and say, I want to do more, I want to achieve more. And I don't know what that looks like. And I think that's something that perhaps a lot of people could relate to, is, that sense of that niggling feeling that you could do so much more, or you could give so much more, but you're not quite sure exactly what that is. But starting somewhere and actually articulating that in the first place, I think is so critical. Do you see that in other people? How do you notice when others are advocating for themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember someone saying to me once, no one is going to be the biggest advocate of your development apart from you. Like, people can support you, but if you don't drive it yourself, if you don't take full ownership over it, you're never going to have that really fulfilling development journey. And that's something that I absolutely share with all of my direct reports, is I am absolutely there to support them, but they need to own their own development. Once they own it, I can absolutely be there, but I can't own it for them, because I might send them in a different direction that is something that, they might not want to go into. So that ownership was instilled in me quite early on in my career. And it's definitely something with all the mentoring and coaching that I do now is one of those fundamentals, because I think it unlocks so many other things, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You have to own your own development. Others can support you, but you have to own it.
It's a really wise piece of advice, I think, really. And to get that early on in your career is a gift, because I think there is a tendency, isn't there, to just rely on my line manager will set me in the direction or will come to me with the opportunities for me to, to take advantage of and so on. And it also puts us in that, I think, for some people, that sense that my work will demonstrate my worth, rather than actually, yes, it might to some extent, but you also need to advocate for yourself. You need to take note and take stock of what you have achieved and ensure that others know about it as well. Would you say that you can do that quite comfortably, that you can advocate for yourself in that way and make sure people know what your latest achievements are?
I would say I much better at it now than I once was. I was definitely in the mindset of keep your head down, do a good job, people will notice. And some people will notice. But I was also given some very similar advice about you don't just do the work, you have to talk about it. And I don't know if it's the fact that I'm in engineering, a female, of a particular age where, that was seen as bragging and showing off, and that wasn't the done thing. So I had to get past a sort of my own mental barriers in it wasn't showing off, it was just advocating for myself. But I had to find the right language for me to use to be comfortable in that. And it wasn't, look at me, look how fantastic I am. It was just making sure that when I did do a good piece of work, that, it wasn't, people did know that that was my work, and it was the right, it was the right people who knew, without being bragging and showing off and all of that. It's finding the right way for me. And I do talk about that with people that I mentor and coach as well. They have to, just because that works for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you. You've got to find the right way of navigating your own language and your own actions that you can feel comfortable with. That ownership of, no, I did that and I should be proud of that, because I can give people, and I do give a lot of positive feedback, but they've got to own that great piece of work as well. So yeah, it's a journey, I think.
It is a journey. And it is something that people struggle with, is how do I let people know what I've achieved and what I've done, and what I'm proud of, especially maybe in a culture that doesn't kind of encourage that. How do you do that? And I wonder if you can give an example of how you might position an achievement of yours so that people knew about it.
Oh, that is a really good, because I'm no longer an individual contributor. Quite a lot of the work that I do is much more, as a leader, creating the right environment for others to thrive. But, I'm creating that environment. So I would say more recently, we've been doing a lot more strategic work. So looking at a sort of 5-year engineering strategy. Now, the content of that strategy absolutely isn't my work, but the frameworks and everything that we pulled together, getting the right people at the right time, was mine. So when we had an end of year review, so this is at the senior leadership level, so the country level, we were all looking at objectives for 2026, presenting what we wanted to do for next year. And I absolutely did that, but I used the first half of my session to reflect on what we'd achieved in 2025, because I wanted to showcase not just what engineering, but actually, what my leadership team and what I had achieved in that year. So I sort of utilized, slight diversion, but said, before we build, we want to build in 2026, but actually I want to take 10 minutes to the rest of the senior leadership team, just to showcase what we had done in 2025, and it was really well received. So I think, finding those little opportunities. So it wasn't I called a meeting and told everybody how great I was, but I found an opportunity where actually I could weave in some of the work that my leadership team, and then broader engineering had achieved, and showcase it in a really positive way, and then build on the brief that I was actually asked for, which was then 2026. And it worked quite well that way.
Yeah.
It's finding those little opportunities.
Yeah, and I think that's really sound advice, Laura, because it is finding those opportunities. And sometimes we feel the pressure to, as soon as something has finished, that we've got to find an opportunity now to let people know. So timing is important to figure that out and not feel the pressure to do it. I think the other thing I like there is it's a personal self-reflection. It's a nice review for yourself to look over and go, this is what I made happen this year. And it provides a context that you can build on. So it shows that sort of growth, either in capability or what comes next or what the natural sequence is. So you're taking people on that journey with you. The other thing that I think can also be valuable is developing a point of view. And I wonder whether that's something perhaps in interviews or in discussions, strategic discussions, where you develop your own point of view about an approach or a technology or a strategy or a place in the market, and you talk about, you use that as a vehicle to showcase what you know and what you're capable of, right? That demonstrates, without showboating, without that sense of, I'm telling everyone how great I am. You're demonstrating it through tangible sort of contributions to conversations, aren't you? By, this is my point of view. And what I think I would love to have been there to listen to that context. It shows strategy, it shows strategic thinking, demonstrates really clearly that we've achieved these things for 2025, and then our next year is going to look like this because of everything that we've put in place. So there are lots of threads in there. I hope people take away from getting over that sense of, I don't want to talk about myself because it feels uncomfortable.
Yeah, and as I was just saying, I'm still not the person who can go into the room and go, look how great I am. But it's that finding your way through it. And actually, I have got 20 years experience. I have got a lot, it's focusing on what you do bring to the table, and they are valuable things, and believing those as well, but not in a I'm the best thing since sliced bread sort of way. But, there is a level of credibility there. And I can believe that. And if I believe that, others will believe that too.
Brilliant. I love that. And it's kind of a nice segue into, you talked about this, how you mentor and coach people now. And we've spoken in the past about, what have been the things about the Leaders Who Coach program that have still stayed with you, that have proven really valuable for you day to day. And you talked about the personal values exercise. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Yes. So something I've used profusely over the last few years. And I think it was one of the first exercises we did, wasn't it? Which was to, go through a values exercise and pick those 3 key values. And I've actually still got them well. And as I was going through, so mine at that point in time were purpose, authenticity, and relationships. And it said a lot about me in terms of what I really value, what's really, really important to me. And I got the opportunity in the interview process that I was going through. They're a director role, so they were, testing me, psychometrics, this and that. And I, got through to the actual interviewing of people round. One of the questions from, I was interviewed by a VP and a director. And, it was the sort of classic, tell me about yourself. And that could go in many, many different ways, couldn't it? And because we had recently done this, I answered all around my values and said, well, if you want to know about me, you need to know about my values, purpose, authenticity, relationships, and then gave them a brief overview of each of those and why they're so important to me and why that would make me so great at the role. And, you know, they wrote them down. After I did get the job, the VP actually came up to me and, you know, told me how impactful that answer had been, because it gave him a real sense of who I was, what I was about, how I would fit into the executive team, because quite a lot of the overall MD's focus at the time was developing those relationships, giving everybody a real sense of purpose through broader, you know, it hit home in a lot of different ways. So for me, you know, quick win, I think was really, really powerful in terms of just being able to tell people, right, that's me. It's, yeah, okay, it could be, yes, Laura's got 20 years worth of experience and she's done this and she's done that. But the thread that goes through that is those values. And now when I do mentoring and coaching, especially people who haven't necessarily started down that self-awareness journey, you know, into this whole sort of leadership sphere, it's a really great exercise to start people thinking about, okay, yes, my job is this and I do this, but actually, what is it about me? What are the things that are really important to me, so that when opportunities come up, I can assess it against my values. Is this going to be the right thing for me? And yeah, and it's such a simple, isn't it? But such a powerful technique. And I've done it again. I think we mentioned before, I've done it again recently, and they are similar but different now. So, you know, a few years later, I've added a couple in there, but family is a massively, I'm not saying it wasn't in 2021, but now my kids are a little bit older. Being present with them is so much more important when you're out, you know, out of the baby phase. They can absolutely tell when you're not focusing completely on, you know, what is it? My daughter likes, we've got those little pizza and ice cream cart, so we're very much in the sort of make-believe stage. If I am not serving pizza 100% focused, she knows. That is a real key one for me. Being present with my family is such a key value for me at this stage in my life that wasn't necessarily, you know, a few years ago. And in a few years' time, something else might have been weaved in there as well. But I know that about me. Those are the things that are really important about me, for me. And I can use those to centre against those sort of big life decisions that do come up and go, right, well, is this in line with my values? And I do that and I share that. And I must have shared this with, you know, when was it? 2022. So this is coming up for 4 years now. So I've shared this with a fair amount of people, and it's received some really great feedback. So that was a real key learning point very early on in the course for me, for my own development and for others.
It is. It's grounding, isn't it? And it's incredible how valuable it is to have a shorthand for ourselves to measure, like you say, for those big decisions. And also to anchor yourself and know when you're going into a role what's important for you. Like what is it about this role that's going to be fulfilling for me and is going to be satisfying and will give me the, you know, the creative outlet or the opportunity to really exercise what's important to me or how I like to lead. And so it warms my heart to know that you have, you know, it's been valuable for you, but you've also used it as a way of helping people who you're working with, whether they're direct reports or somebody else, right, in your space, because it's the gift that keeps on giving. It's like, you know, it's the what do I stand for? And I love the fact that you've added stuff, because as life changes and you find yourself in a different part of life, some things become way more important, or just they come into much sharper focus, don't they? And remind us of, why am I feeling uncomfortable about this situation or position or choice, and to have a way to navigate through it really quickly. I hear a lot of leaders use it to, when they are stepping into new roles and wanting to get to know their team, their inherited team and so on. How's that been useful for you when you've stepped into this new role? Has it given you some perspectives or insights that have helped you get your feet under the table?
I think, as you say, having that real focus on what my values are meant that I could assess the role against my values, which was really important. And then, yes, when I met my team one of the first times, really, really clearly articulating it. I remember, because when I got the role, this is the 2022 role, when I went in and I had my one-to-ones with everybody, my very first one-to-ones with people, I did share that. Then, this is me, this is what I'm about, these are the things that are really important to me. And it allowed people to then connect to me, I think, very quickly. And then what we'd then progress to do was more of a sort of broader teams exercise in terms of their own values. And then as a team, we could see really where we had very similar values and where we had that diversity in values as well. And you don't want everybody holding all the same values, because then you'll all be sort of thinking in a particular way, or thinking, oh no, that is the most important thing. So it was really great to do it as a team as well, because we could see where we were converging in certain things, but also diverging, and actually allowing ourselves to go, okay, well, someone thinks this is really important, someone thinks this is really important, but actually we need the combination in order to make the best decision for the team, the best decision for engineering, the best decision for the business. So yeah, as a team exercise as well was really powerful in terms of that.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. You'll be pleased to know that, well, this may be new to you. There's a Leaders Who Coach app that I'm about to launch. So when people are listening to this, it will be available. And that first section, the foundation module that has the personal values and the blind spots exercise, if you recall that one, is available for anyone to do, so that those sections are free for people to take. So if you're listening to this and you're curious about the values exercise and Laura's experience of it, you can go and experience it for yourself by downloading the app and doing the foundation section, which is free. So yeah, brilliant, really brilliant. I love it. I think hands down, when I talk to graduates, this is the kind of standout thing that has enabled them to connect with people really quickly and get to know their teams really quickly. But also, as you say, it allowed your team to get to know you and know who they were bringing into the mix. So yeah, massively valuable. One of the things that I'd love to just surface here is what's important to you about coach leading people, because I count you as a coach leader. So what's for you, if you could name, your top 2 priorities in the way that you show up as a coach leader, what would you say they are?
That's a big question, isn't it? Top 2. I think my first one absolutely is that ability to elevate people. When you're in that management role, people ask you a question, you answer it, you carry on. People ask you a question, you answer it. The shift to that coach leader is allowing then your team and my teams, for the last few roles, I've been leading leaders. So allowing my leaders to elevate into more well-rounded leaders. So they might ask me a question, but then I now appropriately, I would say, because, if there's a yes, no question, I still do answer those. But my default, if it's not an immediate yes, no question, is to respond with more questions and moving that person from a recipient, oh, I'll go and do the doing, to having that more ownership and accountability of the solution. So I think elevating my teams through this process has been the absolute number one for me. And I think there's a couple of bits in there around the questions that you ask. And the fantastic list of questions that you furnished us with was really powerful, because, as I say, my default was just, I'm very, very busy. You ask me a question, I answer it, I move on to the next thing. So actually having the right questions to ask, I think is really, really important. And the ability to just change one word in a question to make it completely different, much, much more powerful, or making it really specific, rather than you just did it to me, rather than what do you think you can do about this, to what are the top 2 things that you can do about this before Friday, making it really specific, allowing them to come up with the solution. So I think the power of a really good question. And then the bit that I really struggled with that we've spoken about before, leaving them the ability to have the time and space to answer. Being in a very operational environment, going from the question, answer to asking a powerful question and then leaving silence. And I am still not completely comfortable with long periods of silence, but your course and the practice that we did during the course allowed me to navigate my own way through that and share some of the techniques that really worked for me. So asking that powerful question, and then I actually used to have to dig my nails into my hands just to give me like, it's okay, you don't have to answer right now. Or the slightly less painful of asking a really powerful question and then counting in my head. And I once got to 17 in my head before somebody answered. I had to count, because if I hadn't counted to 17, I think I might have thought it was 1,000 seconds, because that's how long that period felt. But I had to move myself from it's an uncomfortable silence to what I learned in your course was it's a space for somebody to think and come up with their own solution, which is going to be better than my solution because they are closer to the problem. And that, apart from the values piece, I think was the single biggest learning point that I took away. And it's so powerful because, just like me, my leaders are operational. They are in the thick of it. They are answering questions left, right, and centre. They don't get that time and space to think. So when they come up to me and I ask them a question and they have a little bit of time and space, you can see their mind shift and actually taking ownership of that solution and then seeing the power of it and then using it with their people. So for me, that was a big journey, but people don't tend to. They just see me now serenely sitting there, don't they, asking a question and sitting back and not knowing that I'm going, oh goodness, this is an uncomfortable silence. So I then started talking about it. So there was a group of leaders that we got together last November, and we were talking about some coaching techniques. And I sort of stopped the session and said, I'd just really like to share my experience here, because they were, the vast majority of them were engineers, all in that operational space, and just said, I'm on a journey here, but this is where I started in my journey. This is what I experienced. I found it extremely uncomfortable. I did the counting. I no longer have to count, but these are the things that work for me. People don't talk about it, but it is really uncomfortable. If you're feeling uncomfortable, that's completely normal, because that's not the space that we're used to working in. But these are the things that work for me. They might work for you. There might be other things that work for you. And a few of them came up to me afterwards and were like, I didn't realize that you struggled with that. I didn't realize that because you don't talk, once you master a technique, you don't tend to talk about the struggles that you've taken to get to that particular technique. So I think it's really powerful when you do learn something to then actually share that learning, and that it's okay, and that I am not, I'm on that journey still, better than I was. In a few years' time, hopefully, I will be better again. But it was really powerful in terms of understanding what that silence is for and then using it with people. And I've had, people that I've coached that really wanted to practice it. I was like, coach me. We'll record a team session. I promise you, I will never look at it. This is for you, but you coach me, you practice, you can review it. And they've said that's been really powerful for them as well. And I've had coaching from some of my direct reports, which is great because they're all awesome at it.
Brilliant. There's so much that's beautiful in there. So thank you for sharing those things. So elevating people, and the other thing that I'm hearing is that your willingness to share your own experience as a way of guiding and offering that. So even the discomfort, even the difficulty in practicing a technique is so important. I do want to touch on this thing. It's the noise in our head, isn't it? Of feeling like there's lots to discuss and lots to cover. But recognizing that space isn't for us to be looping in our minds about a solution, but it's for the other person, isn't it? It's for the other person to think without distraction, without interruption. And that takes time. But actually, not that long. I mean, you counted 17 seconds. It's not that long, really. But we do feel the pressure, don't we, day to day of moving things along as quickly as possible, solving that problem, solving this one, and so on, so that we jump in. Not even a second passes before we jump in versus giving it an extra 16, 17 seconds. Yeah, it is one of the hardest things to do. Yeah.
It's so tough. But I think once you realize the power of it, not just because the operational responding is not sustainable and it's not scalable either. If every decision has to come through me, I'm going to have to make all of the decisions. And I'm not closer to the problems than the people who are coming up to me and asking me for those decisions. So that's the other bit that I have to sort of refresh myself, because operational it's default, it's easy, it's a quick fix, isn't it? But it's not sustainable and it's not scalable. Whereas actually coaching people, elevating them, giving that time and space and those techniques means that they can then do it with their teams and they can do it with their teams. And actually then the decisions are being made right next to the problems. They're being made quicker rather than it coming up for, 3 or 4 different levels for me to make a decision with the information that I have. So I think that's the other thing that's really helped me. It's not the people development, as the relationships and piece is really, really close to my heart. I love that. But the ability to be able to scale and, keep that system going, which means that I can then focus on more strategic things rather than being in the operational, is the other driver for me.
And I'm reflecting on how you've described that, because again, I think that's a balance that a lot of leaders struggle with, is how do I get the time to be more strategic? I don't feel like I'm having the input that I need to be having at my level because I'm too busy pulled into solving problems or making decisions that actually could be solved by other people. And you rightly recognize, it's not scalable. It's, but you investing in and modeling how to be with your leaders so that they can do the same. And because they do, everyone copies, right? Everyone copies what they see as that style. And they quietly will go, I like that. I like that approach, right? Because it's empowering. And when someone is allowed to speak, they are owning the problem even more. They're owning the approach, aren't they? Even more. And you don't have to, but it's quite rewarding watching someone go through that process, isn't it? I mean, just to see someone blossom and grow in their confidence or capability because you gave them an extra 17 seconds.
Absolutely. And that's, if we have a look at all of my values, they are all around people and their development and the power of people. So yes, when it works, and it works the vast majority of the time, it's so rewarding to see, isn't it? And as you say, that allows it to scale, because then they see it works and then they can use it with their people who also see it works. They use it with theirs. So yeah, it's massively rewarding, and that's how you get those cultural shifts as well, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely. So I'm just going to pause a minute for us to just see, is there anything else that you would like to talk about that we haven't touched on? You talked about values. There was lots of lovely stuff that you shared.
Sorry, it was all sort of, and this and this. Yeah, I did say. I mainly kept on to the question you actually asked, but there's a lot there, because actually I learned loads in that space of time. So
yeah, I get throughout while you're talking, I get a lot of goosebumps, because it's like, oh wow, oh yes. So it's nice to hear that experience for you, what still has made an impact for you, and that you've become part of. I really think actually you have it in you. A lot of the way of being and showing up was already there for you. And I think Leaders Who Coach gave you a platform, gave you the language, gave you a structure, perhaps. I don't know, maybe I've got that wrong, but I have a strong sense that it was naturally who you are. And it just gave you that space to kind of grow your awareness of something that you said at the beginning, right? When people haven't started that journey yet. What are your thoughts about that?
I think there was probably something there. Um, as you say, I think it came at a great time. It was when I came back from maternity, wanting to do something more. I think the cohort that we had and the framework of the weekly sessions, and as you said, that language. But I also think it was you as well in terms of how
Oh,
you taught the course. I really connected to in terms of because of my values and because I can see your values are very similar in that respect, where I talk about I get that feeling from my people. I could see you then got that about me because I was then one of your people who learnt so much. So
yeah.
yeah, I think timing, a little bit of like a predisposition, but the course content and you as well. I think there were
Thank
a
you.
number of different elements that then meant that I just got the best out of it, I think.
Amazing. Amazing. Fantastic. I've really, really enjoyed our conversation, Laura, as always. So, and thanks for sharing all those tips. I'm sure there's a lot that I'm hoping people will take away and think about for themselves as they think about their own leadership style. So, yeah, brilliant to have you on.
And thank you so much for having me. It's been an amazing conversation. I think, the ability to reflect as well. I'd forgotten some of these little tidbits. So for me, actually just reinforcing my own learning has been fantastic and always lovely to have a conversation with you as well, Sehaam. So thank
Thank you. Oh, mutual. Brilliant. Are you subscribed to the Leaders Who Coach podcast yet? I would love and appreciate you following the podcast. If coach leadership or coaching skills as a leader is something you wish for yourself, do check out the links, the playlist, and make Leaders Who Coach a regular thing for you. You can also start your journey by downloading the Leaders Who Coach app, where you can complete the foundation module absolutely free. That's the personal values exercise that Laura's talked about, and also a blind spots exercise, which is a lovely, very simple conversation exercise. So you get to discover what's important to you, where you might be creating blockers for yourself, and more about coach leadership and how coaching skills can make you more influential and enjoy leading teams with way less heavy lifting. So join me next time on the Leaders Who Coach podcast.